And the Green New Deal is becoming a major part of presidential politics. Here's what a few of the 2020 Democrats had to say about the plan Monday night.
This is to our collective peril if we don't take this matter seriously with a sense of urgency. Why I support the Green New Deal is because it does that. It puts timelines in effect. It appreciates that we need to take this seriously, and the clock is ticking every day on this issue.
I am a strong supporter of the Green New Deal. The first reason that I'm a strong supporter is it is a way to say urgency. Now, we cannot wait any longer.
To me, the issue of moving very aggressively on climate change is a moral issue because it speaks to whether or not we are going to leave this country and our planet, and I've got 7 grandchildren, including 3 here in New Hampshire, in a way that is healthy and habitable. And if we do not act aggressively, it will be a disaster.
However, some lawmakers on the other side of the aisle are ready to strike down progressive policies in 2020, like the Green New Deal. Here's what Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said Monday.
If I'm still the Majority Leader of the Senate, think of me as the Grim Reaper. None of that stuff is going to pass. None of it. So, we had a big job to do next year. Obviously, if we get the House back, that takes care of it. If the president gets reelected, that takes care of it. But I guarantee you, if I'm the last man standing and I'm still the majority leader, it ain't happening.
Aracely Jimenez is the spokesperson for the youth activist group The Sunrise Movement. The organization helped launch the Green New Deal, working with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Ed Markey to shape the proposal. Aracely, thank you so much for being with us. We really, really appreciate it. We just heard Mitch McConnell say there that he wants to be the, quote, Grim Reaper of progressive policies. So given, obviously, that we have a Republican-controlled Senate, do you think there's room for some moderate compromise on this issue?
I would say no, and that's mostly because there is growing grassroots support for the Green New Deal in every corner of this country, including in Senate Majority Leader McConnell's own home state of Kentucky.
So do you see that, you work with the youth movement, do you see that a lot of younger people, a lot of younger voters consider the issue of climate change a primary issue, if not the #1 issue?
Absolutely, because climate change is going to have such a huge impact on our futures. We know that we're the generation who's going to feel the crisis full force, which also means that when we hear plans like the Green New Deal that are ready to tackle the issue at the scale that science demands, we're really excited, and it means that we're ready to get to work to make it happen.
So, but even in the field of the Democrats, we have a big field, obviously, of Democrats running for election in 2020. There's a split in how they are approaching the issue of climate change. Some are backing the Green New Deal outright. Others are a little bit more cautious. Let's hear what Amy Klobuchar had to say about it. Let's listen.
And I think what's important as you look at the goals in the Green New Deal, and no one thinks we're going to dot every I and cross every T in a short period of time, but we need those goals. We need as a nation to come behind goals. We need the energy of young people and people that really want to move on climate change.
So she's clearly supporting the goals, maybe not the Green New Deal. Do you think that Democratic politicians like Amy Klobuchar there are going far enough?
I would say no. I would love to hear more concrete proposals that would fit into a Green New Deal. With just 12 years to tackle this crisis, it's time for Democratic 2020 candidates to come out with their specific policy issues so that young people can make a real informed decision, because when we go to the polls in 2020, we're voting for our futures.
Right, but any sort of legislation has to get through both, it has to get through both a Republican-controlled Senate, a Democrat-controlled House. There has to be some compromise usually. Would your group and would those backing the Green New Deal be happy with a sort of Obama-era compromise? I mean, it happened with health care. There was a lot of compromise there. The bill went through, and now a lot of Americans, both on the left and the right, are pretty happy with it. Would you be happy with that sort of compromise?
I would say no, and that's mostly because, again, the most recent science has told us that this is a crisis that we have an expiration date on.
Okay, then I just want to share some reaction to the Green New Deal from Republican Senator Chuck Grassley. He says it is an unworkable pie-in-the-sky attempt to reshape every aspect of everyday Americans' lives. So I want to know from you, how literally should Americans take the proposals in the Green New Deal?
Very literally.
So you don't agree with anything that Senator Grassley says there about these being unworkable tenets?
Absolutely not. The proposals in the Green New Deal have been rising in popularity, including in really important 2020 battleground states like Iowa.
Now, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi spoke with 60 Minutes last week, and she has repeatedly downplayed the rise of some of the progressives in Congress, such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Let's take a listen to some of what Pelosi told Leslie Stahl. Let's listen.
You have these wings, AOC and her group on one side.
That's like 5 people.
No, it's the progressive group. It's more than 5.
I'm a progressive, yeah.
So she's kind of downplaying some of these younger progressives in Congress. We know that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez sort of put your group on the map by protesting outside of Nancy Pelosi's office right after she was elected. So what would you say to Nancy Pelosi? Do you think that she is underestimating some of these junior Congresswomen persons?
Absolutely. The success of people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ayanna Pressley, this new wave of progressive Democrats, is because when they run on policies that speak to the majority of Americans. And, it just shows that perhaps Nancy Pelosi is a little bit out of touch with the Democratic base.
So would you like to see a different leadership?
I would love to see Nancy Pelosi come and stand with our generation and stand for a Green New Deal. We have a large movement that's growing every day, and we're ready to support and throw down for the leaders who step up and agree to treat this crisis as it is.
And let's say she doesn't. Then what?
Well, that's unfortunate, but, I really don't have an answer to that, because Sunrise is really about creating the strength, the grassroots strength for the Green New Deal. And in that way, we're hoping to shift Democratic Party leadership.
So what would you say in terms of specific policies that you'd like to see implemented to people who say, hey, this is sort of a half-baked idea, it's not well thought through? What are some of the specific things you can point to that you think are practical?
We want a federal jobs guarantee. We want to expand labor rights. We need to expand Indigenous peoples' rights. We need to give workers consistent access to health care. We need to provide child care. We need to introduce regenerative agricultural practices.
So that's a platform that goes beyond the environment. So you're not talking about just approach in a Green New Deal. You're not talking about just the environment, then.
That's correct, because if we want to achieve, the goals of the Green New Deal on that 10-year timeline, then we have to invest and mobilize in the American workforce, and that's going to mean, giving people access to health care they need without, having them tied to their current jobs. It means, supporting everyone to engage in building this new green economy.
So comprehensive, sweeping legislation. Aracely Jimenez, thank you so much for coming to see us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.